All right. So, we've got quite the pile here this time.
Yeah.
Court documents, government reports, technical specs. I even see some stuff from the Mueller report.
Looks like it.
Looks like we've got a lot to get through.
Yeah. Definitely seems like we're trying to, really get a grasp on how to protect jurors
Yeah.
without, becoming completely secretive.
Right.
And what the Mueller report really has to say about 2016
Yeah.
and how much power a president actually has.
To influence things. Yeah.
Exactly.
There's a lot to untangle here.
There is.
I'm looking at these juror statements from the Roger Stone case.
Yeah.
And it seems like they're pretty worried about their questionnaires.
Yeah, definitely more than just worries. You can see real fear in a lot of these statements.
Yeah.
A lot of the jurors say explicitly that they believe those questionnaires were confidential.
Right.
They even compare it to those private conversations lawyers have with the judge at the bench.
Yeah.
Like, it was never meant for the public to see.
Which makes sense because, we were talking about a case that was really politically charged.
Right.
If their names and opinions get out there, who knows what could happen?
Right.
Harassment or worse.
Exactly. And that raises a huge question for the whole system.
Yeah.
If people are afraid to serve on juries.
Especially on these really high-profile cases.
Yeah, exactly what happens to our ability to, even have a fair trial.
I mean, that's a scary thought.
Yeah.
So we've got this tension then between transparency and safety,
Yeah.
the public's right to know, versus the need to protect the people who are part of making our justice system work.
Right.
So how do we balance that?
Well, some people say we need stricter rules about what information can be released, maybe even keeping jurors anonymous in some cases.
Right.
And then others say no transparency is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And any restriction on that just erodes public trust.
Right. It's tricky.
It's a tough one.
All right. Well, let's move on for a sec and talk about this big thing. We can't ignore the Mueller report.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of stuff highlighted here about Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Right.
And I know you're especially interested in how they used social media to do it.
I am.
Oh.
Yeah, the report goes into a lot of detail about the Internet Research Agency.
The IRA.
Yeah, the IRA, and how they basically used platforms like Facebook and Twitter as weapons.
Yeah. I remember all the talk about Russian bots and fake accounts back then.
Right.
But reading through the report, it's actually a lot more sophisticated than I thought.
It is.
It wasn't just like random posts and comments.
No.
They were really creating these personas and targeting specific groups. I mean, they were even organizing rallies.
Really. It's almost like a masterclass in propaganda.
Wow.
And the really scary part is how effective it seems to have been.
Yeah.
The report shows how these fake accounts were able to amplify the divisions we already had.
Right.
Stoking anger and distrust on both sides.
Right. So it wasn't just about getting one candidate elected over another.
Oh.
It was about really damaging faith in the whole system.
Exactly.
Okay, so then that leads us to the other huge issue the report addresses.
Right.
Potential obstruction of justice by President Trump.
Yeah.
And this gets into some pretty complicated legal stuff.
It does.
But the report lays out 10 specific times when Trump might have tried to interfere with the investigation, like when he tried to fire Mueller himself, pressuring Comey about the Flynn investigation.
Yeah.
It's pretty dramatic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm curious, though, how does the report actually define obstruction of justice?
Well, it's not as simple as just saying that somebody tried to stop an investigation.
Right.
The report says there has to be an obstructive act, like firing someone or tampering with evidence.
Right.
There has to be a connection to like an official proceeding, like a trial or congressional inquiry.
Right.
And there has to be what they call corrupt intent, meaning the person was doing it with a specific purpose of hindering the investigation.
So it's not just what they did, it's why they did it.
Exactly. And that's why these cases are so hard to prove.
Yeah.
It's hard to get inside someone's head.
Right.
And figure out what their intent really was.
Right.
But the report goes through all the evidence and the legal arguments for all 10 of those episodes.
Okay.
And then kind of leaves it up to Congress and the public to decide.
So it sounds like you're saying the report doesn't actually take a side on whether Trump obstructed justice or not.
That's right. Mueller and his team were really careful not to say anything definite about guilt or innocence.
Okay.
They just present the facts, analyze the law, and let everyone else draw their own conclusions.
Which, of course, led to a whole lot of debate.
Oh, yeah.
About what the report actually means.
Absolutely.
Which seems to be still going on.
Still going strong.
So we've got Russian interference, possible obstruction of justice.
Right.
What else did you pull out of this monster of a report?
Well, two other key players, Roger Stone
Okay.
and the Trump Tower Moscow project.
Right.
Both of them raised some serious questions about ties between the Trump campaign and Russia.
Okay, let's start with Stone. So he was a longtime advisor to Trump.
Right.
And he was talking to WikiLeaks during the campaign.
Yeah. During the campaign, the report goes into detail about how Stone was trying to get information from WikiLeaks about those hacked emails that could damage Hillary Clinton.
Yeah.
And it explores the connections between Stone WikiLeaks and Russian intelligence. But it doesn't actually prove there was a direct conspiracy.
So, again, more questions than answers.
More raising red flags than giving definite answers.
Okay, what about the Trump Tower Moscow project? I remember that being a big deal during the campaign.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
The report really digs into how this project could have given Trump a huge financial incentive to stay on Russia's good side.
Right, because it was being negotiated during the election.
During the whole election. Yeah. And it also looks at Michael Cohen's role in the project.
Right.
And the fact that he lied to Congress about it later.
Which brings up another legal issue, campaign finance violation.
Right. Was the Trump campaign trying to get something valuable from a foreign entity?
Yeah.
That's the question.
It is.
The report goes through the legal arguments,
Right.
but again doesn't draw any firm conclusions.
Wow. Okay, so we've got jurors worried about their safety,
Yeah.
a presidential campaign mixed up with a foreign power, and just a whole lot of gray areas.
A lot of gray areas.
It's a lot to process.
It is.
Okay, so what else is in this stack of sources?
Well, there's this document called Mandate for Leadership,
Okay.
which might seem a little out of place at first.
Yeah.
Basically a policy document
Okay.
outlining a conservative approach to the food supply chain.
Wait, food supply chains?
Yeah.
That seems like a pretty big jump from, Russian election meddling and all this presidential power stuff.
He does.
How does this even fit in?
It's a good question.
Yeah.
It's not directly related to the Mueller investigation or anything,
Right.
but it does show how political beliefs shape policy decisions.
Uh-huh.
And if you think about it in terms of power,
Yeah.
controlling the food supply is a huge kind of power.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So we're going from legal and political stuff into food policy and, wait, what's this technical specs for building SCIFs? Like those top secret rooms they show in spy movies?
Yeah.
Where are we going with this?
It might seem like a jump, but stick with me.
Okay.
These SCIF specs actually tie back into the bigger themes we've been talking about.
Right.
Information control and government secrecy.
Okay, now I'm interested. Let's get into these SCIFs
Right.
and see what secrets they hold.
Let's do it. It's like getting a peek into this whole world most people never even know exists.
Okay, I'm hooked. Give me the good stuff. What kind of things we're talking about?
Well, for one thing, did you know in some countries, they won't even let foreign nationals work on building SCIFs?
Yeah. Really? Wow, I guess when it comes to national security, they're not messing around.
Nope, not at all. And it goes way beyond just personnel.
Yeah.
I mean, these documents, they have security measures for everything, doors, windows, even those pneumatic tube systems they use for sending documents around.
Interesting.
There are all these instructions for soundproofing to prevent eavesdropping and shielding to block electromagnetic signals. It's crazy detailed.
So basically, they've thought of every possible way someone could try to snoop around and shut it down.
Exactly. It's like a fortress of information.
Right. And I guess when you're talking about top secret stuff, even a tiny mistake could have massive consequences.
Oh, absolutely. And that brings us back to that whole transparency versus secrecy thing.
Right.
You know, on one hand, you want to trust that the government's doing what they need to do to protect us.
Mm-hmm.
But then how can you hold them accountable if most of what they do is hidden?
It's a tough balance for sure.
It is.
Okay, so we've gone from the ins and outs of jury selection to presidential investigations.
Yes.
We took a little detour through food policy,
Right.
and now we're in the world of government secrecy.
We've been all over the place.
We have, what's the connection here? What's the big takeaway?
Well, if you look closely, it all comes back to information as power.
Okay.
You know, the things jurors say during jury selection can determine someone's future.
Right.
The information that comes out in a presidential investigation could change the course of history.
Wow.
Control over the food supply that can influence whole nations.
And the secrets governments keep could impact global events.
Exactly.
It really highlights how important information is in every part of our lives
It does.
and how easily it can be misused.
Oh, for sure. So we need to be really aware of how information's being used,
Yeah.
who has control over it, and what they're trying to achieve.
Especially now with all this digital stuff.
Especially now when we're just bombarded with information from every direction.
Yeah, we need a whole other deep dive just to figure out how to handle all that and what to believe.
Yeah, we do. Information literacy is more important now than ever.
For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. But let's get back to those sources you sent over.
Okay.
There's one more document we haven't looked at yet, and it mentions something called mining of Twitter influence.
Right?
This sounds interesting. Is it related to the Russian interference stuff?
Not quite. This one seems to suggest that other countries might be trying to use Twitter to get what they want. We don't have a lot of details from this particular document.
Yeah.
But it does hint that foreign influence on social media goes way beyond just that 2016 election.
So it could be a much bigger problem than people realize.
It could be.
That's a little unnerving, to be honest. Makes you wonder how much of what we see online is real and how much is just manipulation.
Yeah. It's a disturbing thought.
Are we all just pawns in some global information war?
It does make you think, and it just emphasizes how crucial critical thinking is.
Right.
We can't just accept everything we see online at face value.
We have to question where it's coming from, who's behind it, what their agenda is.
Exactly. It takes effort,
Yeah.
you know? It's easier to just scroll through our feeds and not think too hard.
Right. But if we want to be informed, if we want to have control over our own thoughts and opinions, we have to put in the work. All right, well, I'm officially feeling overwhelmed.
Yeah.
But also strangely empowered. Like, now that I know about all these tricks and traps, I can start to avoid them.
Exactly. Awareness is the first step.
It is.
And once you start paying attention, you'll be surprised what you notice.
Like what?
Oh, all those subtle biases, the hidden agendas,
Yeah.
the ways information is presented to try to change your mind.
Huh. It's like a whole new world just opened up.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so we've talked about jury privacy, election interference, food policy, government secrecy, and now this whole online manipulation thing. I think my brain is officially full.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot.
Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just one more thing about this Twitter influence document. It got me thinking about the whole concept of information warfare.
Okay.
We hear that term all the time these days, but what does it really mean?
That's a great question. I feel like it's used kind of broadly, like any kind of propaganda or fake news online,
Yeah.
but I'd love to hear your take on it.
Yeah, it's definitely used pretty loosely, but to me, information warfare is more than just spreading lies or propaganda.
Okay, so what is it then?
It's about using information as a weapon to get what you want. It's about controlling how people see things and think about the world, and ultimately making your opponent weaker.
So it's not just about winning people over, it's about actually taking your enemy down.
Exactly. And what makes information warfare so dangerous is that it's hard to even know what's happening.
Yeah.
It's not like a regular military attack where you see tanks and soldiers.
Right. It's sneakier.
Yeah, it's more subtle, it's sneaky, and it can be really hard to spot.
It's like a virus
Yeah.
that gets into your system and changes how you think without you even realizing it.
It's a scary thought, but that's a good way to describe it.
So how do we even protect ourselves from something like that?
Well, it's tough, but as we've been saying, awareness is the first step.
Okay, but that doesn't feel like enough.
Right. You need more than just awareness. So one important thing is to pay attention to your sources.
Yeah.
Where are you getting your information from?
Right.
Are they trustworthy? Do they have a history of being biased? Are they open about where their money comes from and what their goals are?
So it's not enough to just read a headline or watch a video. You have to actually look into the source itself.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
You got to do some digging, see what others are saying about them, check their track record.
And you also have to be aware of your own biases, too.
Oh, absolutely. We all have them, whether we admit it or not.
Right.
And those biases can make us more vulnerable to manipulation.
So we have to be honest with ourselves about what we already believe and be willing to question those beliefs.
Yeah, be open to seeing things from a different perspective, even if it makes you uncomfortable.
Right.
And be willing to change your mind if you see evidence that goes against what you thought before.
So basically you're saying that critical thinking is the best way to fight back against information warfare.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, because at the end of the day, information warfare is all about controlling the narrative.
Right.
It's about shaping how people understand the world. And the best way to fight back against that is to learn how to see through those manipulations and come to your own conclusions.
It's a battle that never ends.
It does feel that way sometimes.
But at least we're not powerless.
Yeah.
We can do something.
We can.
By being aware, by thinking critically, and by being willing to have real conversations with people, even if we don't agree.
I couldn't agree more. It's about taking back some control in a world where information can feel so chaotic and overwhelming.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground today, from juror privacy to the Mueller report, from food policy to government secrecy, and then this deep dive into information warfare. It's been a lot.
Yeah, I have. We've been all over the place.
Any last thoughts you want to leave our listeners with?
Just as we all try to make sense of this crazy world of information, let's not forget to be curious, to think critically, and to be open to new ideas. Let's not settle for easy answers or quick judgments. Let's look for different viewpoints and talk to each other respectfully, and let's never stop questioning, learning, and growing.
Well said. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you learned something new and maybe even feel inspired to keep exploring these ideas on your own. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep challenging what you think you know, and keep searching for the truth.